الشيء الذي علينا إعطائه الأولوية لكي نقرأ ميدان المعركة قراءة جيدة، وأن نتوقع ما سوف يكون عليه الحال، وهو من أبجديات دروس العسكرية. لقد كنا مرتبكين وقلقين وأفكارنا في حالة تشتت تام، فقمنا بوضع الجرحى تحت صخرة كبيرة تتلوى في شكل كهف صغير، ولكنه يمتد عميقا في الجبل. ربما استخدمته بعض الوحوش وجرا أيام أن كانت هناك وحوش وحيوانات برية. تركنا الموتى يستأنسون بالغياب والشمس. رددنا لتأوهات جرحى المتمردين وندائهم ببعض الشتائم القلقة المتوترة، وربما الركلات. لكن موسى، أو ما نسميه بموسى الرحيم، قام بإسعاف كل الجرحى. لم يفرق ما بين عدو وصليح دون استثناء، بمهارة، بسرعة، بإتقان، بمسؤولية، برحمة معهودة فيه وحده. تعلم ذلك من منظمة الصليب الأحمر الدولية، هكذا كان يقول دائما. وكل شيء كان سيمضي على كل حال لولا أن الجاويش المهدي أصر على قتل أحد الجرحى الأسرى. قال إنه يستحق الموت لسبب يعرفه هو وحده وسوف لا يخبر به زول. قيل فيما بعد إن الأسير الجريح أشار إلى المهدي بالإصبع الوسطى. كالعادة تصدى له موسى الرحيم، حيث إنه الشخص الوحيد الذي يتبنى كل الأفكار التي تحرم الإساءة للأسرى، قتلهم أو تعذيبهم أو تركهم للموت بعد إسعافهم، ويفعل ذلك بقلبه وبلسانهم وبيده أيضا. بدأ بمشادة كلامية حادة، ثم تدافعا بالأيدي، ثم استخدم الجاويش المهدي دبشق بندقيته، وبركلة بهلوانية ألقى موسى الرحيم على الأرض. وعندما انتبهنا للمعركة الصغيرة الدائرة بين الرجلين النحيفين الطويلين اللذين هما من كتيبة واحدة، تدخلنا 16 رجلا وامرأتين لفضها والفصل بينهما. كان المهدي قد حمل بندقيته معمرة وفي وضع إطلاق النار، واتخذ موضعا حربيا دفاعيا هجوميا خطيرا بالقرب من صخرة الجرحى الذين نسوا آلامهم في الحال. توقف عن التأوه والصراخ، طلب الماء وتبادل الوصايا. أخذوا يحملقون لعيون زائغة مفتوحة إلى آخرها فينا، في المهدي، في موسى الرحيم المرمي على الأرض فاقدا الوعي. يصدر الآن أصواتا غير مفهومة تمثل إحضار فرصتهم الأخيرة في الحياة. طلب المهدي من الجميع الجلوس، وإلا لحستكم كلكم واحد واحد. جلسنا. أمرنا بأن نضع أيدينا على رؤوسنا وأن ننظر في اتجاه الشمال مقابلين إياه بظهورنا، ويريد أن يحدث ذلك زي الهوى. فعلنا. هددنا بأنه إذا تحرك أي منا أي حركة مريبة كانت أم صديقة لأي اتجاه كان سوف أشربه. أومأنا برؤوسنا أن فهمنا وأطعنا. عندما سمعنا هوهوة الرصاصات، بالرغم من كل التهديد والوعيد، اتجهنا جميعا في لحظة واحدة نحوه. كان يدوس برجله على ظهر الأسير الجريح الذي يركض ميمما وجهه شطر الأرض ورأسه غارق في الرمل الأصفر الحارق تحت ثقل بوت وجسد المهدي. وفي ناحية قلب الأسير الجريح يطلق المهدي الرصاص، طاخ 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 طاخ، 6 رصاصات قاتلات نافذات من كلاشنكوفه. صمت الأسير الجريح نهائيا في حالة من الموت كاملة تامة فعلية وحقيقية ولا شك فيها مطلقا. مات كما يجب أن يموت أسير جريح أطلقت 6 رصاصات من كلاشنكوف جاويش عجوز في قلبي. طاخ 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 طاخ. عندما رفع المهدي رجله من رأس الأسير الجريح الميت. نهض الأسير الجريح الميت أغبر أشعث طويلا مرعبا وصامتا. وقف المهدي مندهشا فاغرا فاه في بلادة بينة بائسة مع عجز كامل عن النطق أو التعبير. عاجل الأسير الجريح الميت المهدي بلكمة واحدة قوية في رأسه فأرداه صريعا على الأرض. بحركة أخرى جيدة قام الأسير الجريح الميت بقلب المهدي على ظهره ببطء. وضع رجله اليمنى على ظهر المهدي. أحلى الأسير الجريح الميت جسده في شكل قوس عملاق ورهيب فوق جسد المهدي الميت على الرماد. أمسك الرأس بكفتيه الكبيرتين الملوثتين بالتراب. أدارها ناحية اليمين في رفق وعناية فائقتين، ثم بذات الرفق والعناية الفائقتين أدار الرأس ناحية الشمال بهدوء وصبر كأنه نطاسي عليم يدرس حركة عنق مريضة. ثم في سرعة البرق وبمهارة شيطان رجيم حنى الرأس للوراء في زاوية حادة لجعلنا نستمع إلى فرقعة عظام رقبة المهدي وهي تتحطم مصحوبة بشخير عميق وقح وما يشبه نغمة دو وازا منفلتة. ظل طنينها عالقا في الهواء لزمن طويل، بينما كانت بعض أطيار الكلود تغرد عابر السماء العارية نحو الشرق. رقد الرجل الأسير الجريح الميت تمطى في متعة خاصة. وضع يديه في حزية مع جسده الطويل الثقيل الهادئ ثم مات مرة أخرى. شكرا.
Thank you very much for this reading. Thank you very much for the lovely reading and for this text. My first question is the following. I'm going to start actually with the last words in this beautiful story that you read. The last phrase is, and he died all over again. In that story, and a number of other stories in the collective, such as a story with the name of The Dead Man, where the narrator goes to the house of a man who got killed in the war to find out that this man is still living in his house. And the man says to the narrator, I believe we have met before. In such stories, borders between life and death disappear. Or maybe we can say that the dead can cross borders and come back to life. Can you speak to us about this theme in your texts? This idea of dead people and people coming back to places in order to achieve justice or maybe to take revenge. Can you talk to us about this theme, please? Abdelaziz, thank you very much. In fact, in Sudan, especially in the ethnic groups, this separation between life and death is a very vague one. It's not a clear one. Most people believe is not an end, but rather a continuation. This is a very deep belief in the Sudanese culture. Our forefathers in the old Nubian kingdoms, when they bury a man or a woman or even a child, they bury their possessions, their properties that they used to have during their life with that person. They used to put something called ka and something else called ba. The ka is something made of mud or stone, but it's there to keep the dead company and to ensure that there is a relationship staying between this dead and the people who are still alive. And in this culture, later was called the Baati, which is the person that accompanies you after death. So that's why I'm saying that in the Sudanese, even before the Abrahamic religions, death was never considered the end. It was never considered the end, but rather the start of a new life. The other side of the question, yes, I have such themes because these conflicts are happening in Sudan. It is believed that the only person or the person who can't take revenge is someone who's not sensible, because there is no justice. There is no justice anywhere in Khartoum, in the north, in the south, in the east, in all areas. There is no justice. People know very can't achieve it, and that's why the individual themselves are required to achieve this justice for themselves. They have to take revenge and achieve justice by themselves even after. So that's their role. That's what I can say briefly. Sinan. In the novel of the Messiah of Darfur, obviously this novel is a very important novel, and we have seen this theme there very clearly. But let's move to my second question. It's about slavery and enslavement, which has come back to the surface really strongly now. And you have written many novels and stories about that. It plays a very important part in your literary texts, and you deal with this theme courageously and with complexity that we don't really see in many other literary texts. The path of your characters and how you follow their life in your texts sheds light on important points in history where the overlap of identities, well, ethnic and national identities, was politicized and used to the benefit of certain ideology and wars. It also dismantles such overlap. Can you tell us more about this point in your creative projects? And also this complexity in the map of Sudan historically. Abdelaziz, yes, thank you for the question. In fact, this issue of slavery and enslavement in Sudan is a very, very, because it's one of the factors that can explain what's happening in Sudan right now. In my own opinion, it is obviously well known that slavery as a social system did exist even in the Marawi state and many other states and kingdoms in the past. But in Sudan,
يمكن في دولة سينارية أو
in the
السلطنة الزرقاء في رأيي
Senari state,
الدولة التي قام نظام الاقتصاد فيها
is the state where
أنظمة الرق وهي
rape and many other crimes were allowed because of slavery. These states obviously owned weapons and authority. Even they had a specific person with a specific rank in the government regime who commanded attacks against other people. And who are those other people? Those other people are just citizens of the same land. They are just normal citizens, normal human beings. They have families, they have children, and some of them are very religious, whether they follow their own African religion or Islam. So a citizen that has all the rights of any regular citizen, but they don't have the same power and authority that the government has. And that's how those people become a commodity that can be bought and sold. This, of course, has created some kind of segregation in the Sudanese community between a group, a weak group, an enslaved group, and another strong group of people who can buy and sell others. And although the time of slavery has ended, but this idea stayed in the minds of many. Even so, who are not in a position of power became slaves, even after the end of slavery. And that's why many of the educated people in Sudan and those who dream of a better future for the where people can live in peace together, they understand this view. But then the groups that has the authority and power, and obviously some and the money, of course, they managed to have the advantages politically or economically, and the problems in Sudan became more complex. Leaving it untreated is not going to help. We have to talk about this problem. We have to write about it. We have to speak about it until it ends, until our society recovers from such problems and people start enjoying equality. Because the truth is, people are equal, and the citizens themselves need to understand this. And when they understand, when they realize this fact, they will start working towards achieving this equality between all people in all the people of Sudan. So that's, as you mentioned, is a very, very complex issue in Sudan. Sinan, okay, very well. My third question, and this is actually my last, about receiving and reading. Let me see, I have my questions here. Okay, there is an ongoing debate about the issue of receiving, reading, and categorizing the literature of the other. And what I mean by the other here is the literature coming from the south of the earth. And the way this literature is received or perceived in the north of the earth. Obviously, you literally have talked about this very in details. And although that you were banned from writing in your own country, Sudan, your literally texts were translated to many languages. So would you be able to tell us about this point, Abdelaziz? Yes. In fact, many of the readers, many of the people in general, look at literature or look at writers or that were translated into Western languages with doubt. So sometimes they say, why did they translate your books? Why this person's books were translated, but the other person didn't get any kind of translation in these countries? So maybe because you are writing in the same way as the Europeans, or maybe because you're talking about the same topic as the Europeans, many of these accusations really. But the truth is, and I'm sure that you know that very well, translation in Europe does not follow the choice of the establishments. It doesn't follow the choices of the government. It, in fact, the translators themselves, who are free people, they choose a specific text because they liked it. And then this translator goes to the second step, which is finding a publisher. So, for example, when Exaferdova started translating my novel to French, this did not happen overnight. It actually took a very long time. He translated part of my novel and then he sent it to a number of publishers. Some accepted it and some did not. And maybe after 3 years or something like that, he eventually found a publisher. And I'm talking here about Zulma. This developed and progressed very naturally, and there was no conspiracy there at all. This happens with all writers, not just me. So, translation of literature in Europe is based on certain things. First, the choice. So the text is chosen by the translator or someone else, then the publisher. Then the third factor is the market. It is very difficult to find a good market in Europe or in America because the translated literature from other languages to, for example, the European languages or English in America, well, it's only maybe 20% of the total literature in places because people don't really like to read translated texts. But let's talk about Arabic. So, for example, literature that was translated from Arabic into French is a very limited number of texts. So, and it's very difficult to find readers who are interested in reading such texts. So that's why sales is always limited. So the market is very small. There are many issues really around this point of translation. But the other thing is regarding banning certain writers in our countries, this is a very painful thing. Because in Sudan, for example, there is a law which is called the Literary and Artistic Categorization Law, which stipulates what people can write and what they cannot write about. Especially Article 15 of that law specifies exactly what topics you can write about and where you can publish them. So this kind of law is used in order to censor literature in Sudan. Well, especially in the government of the Muslim Brotherhood, they put or enacted laws in order to restrict the life of people in all from all perspectives. So my books were banned in accordance with this law, because this law obviously stipulates on you what you can write and what you cannot write. But I don't abide by this law. I don't abide by the understanding of other people of literature. And I'm not an obedient writer. I'm not obedient to anyone. I'm not talking here about just literature, but I'm talking about everything, my personal beliefs, my personal choices. I'm not an obedient person, but I only follow the religion of literature. I only follow the morals of the characters that I write about. I think this is my problem. And that's why I was banned in Sudan. It's a political problem. Yeah. Thank you. I think the irony here is that when a writer is banned, this actually makes readers more curious to find this reader's book. So there is a book fair in Kuwait right now. We understand, of course, that the ban happened for political reasons, such as in your case. But sometimes the ban happens for completely random reasons, like banning the texts of the poet Saada. But in all case, well, I can keep asking questions as I can, but let me open the door to the attendees. Okay, let me just comment about banning writers in other countries. So of course, I was banned in Sudan, but in Kuwait, I think they are fond of banning books, even things that have nothing to do with them. So I understand that certain books were banned in Oman. Well, I understand why, because it's talking about Zanzibar and it's talking about the occupation of Oman to Zanzibar. It talks about slavery and enslavement that happened in Zanzibar, so maybe they are feeling a little bit sensitive about it. But Kuwait, what has Kuwait got to do with this? And thank you very much for all your questions. I'm happy, obviously, to take questions from all the attendees. Sinan, I have many other questions, but if they ask the question in English, you can change the interpretation bar that you can hear it in Arabic. Until somebody asks a question, let me say this. In Kuwait, the censorship is really, really strange. They banned Arusafis poet. It's called الشخصية المحمدية, and one of the MPs said we have to ban Maruf al-Rasafi from entering Kuwait. And you know very well that Maruf al-Rasafi had passed away more than half a decade away. So they want to ban even the dead from entering their country, not only the people who are still alive. Okay. If there are any questions or any comments from the attendees, please go ahead. Anybody has their hands up? If not, we have other questions. I wanted to ask you actually about the body in your texts, in your writings. I'm talking about the topic of the gender, because obviously when we're talking about the body in war, body becomes a target. But actually, Azareen has got a question. So let me just let me leave that until Azareen asks her question.
في عندك شات وشير سكرين، في عندك انتربريتيشن. المفروض اذا تكبس عليه راح يطلع لك خيارات عربي او انجليزي، فانت حط عربيك علشان تسمع الترجمه.
للاسف ما عندي هنا، ما اعرف ليه.
اوكي، ممكن يمكن maybe Asma can translate after the question if it's not a long question, right?
Can he? I can do that, but can.
لا حتى ما مش سامعنا. يا اوكي. لا مش سامع ومش موجودة، حتى مش سامع السؤال وغير موجود عندي
Okay, he's Abdelaziz is struggling with his Okay.
Should I go ahead? Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Sinan, but since we've stopped, I'll go ahead. I was curious if for you, Abdelaziz, as a writer, censorship influenced actually how you wrote, if it pushed your style towards a sense of mischief, or kind of if you played with censorship in your writing as a reaction, even as a parody. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for being here with us today, by the way.
اوكي، سمعت سؤالها مباشرة. في الحقيقة يعني
I heard the question and I understand it. In fact, it did affect my life more than it affected my writings. First, after my books were banned, I was still living in Sudan, although I was restricted in a very annoying way by the authorities, and I was arrested many times. But I stayed in Sudan. But then I reached a stage of fearing for my life. So that's why I escaped. So that is one of the direct effects of this censorship and ban. The other thing is the fact that censorship affected my writings, but in a positive way. So, for example, I put my books as PDF for free on the internet, and this way readers manage to read my books anywhere in the world. Of course, that affected the publishers and affected my sales, but I didn't get affected by censorship in a way that made me react to it in my writings. But from a different perspective, when I came to exile, when I came to Europe, I have found out about a completely different world, the world of refugees. So I looked at this world in a completely different way. I learned languages. So the impact was positive. So maybe it didn't affect my style, it didn't affect my way I wrote, but it might have affected my topics. Sinan, there is a question between Layla Abu Layla. Free expression is an advantage of living in the West, but what are the challenges for the writer to live away from home? So what are the challenges for a writer who lives in exile? Abdelaziz, thank you very much. Layla, she knows very well about this. Yes, there are so many challenges. For Miss Layla, who writes in English, maybe she is in a better position than many other writers. So we write in Arabic or in any other language. I mean by that, any language other than the European language. Face the challenge of translation. This is quite a big problem. It's not easy to find a translator. And also there is the problem of can a writer live on the income of writing books in Europe? Well, taking into consideration that Europe for me is a very, very expensive place to live in. The living expenses are extremely high. So if I would live on the income that I get from writing, is very difficult and very challenging. And if I take another job, I will not have enough time to write. So I can, of course, work in any other place, like in a restaurant or in a factory, and I respect any kind of work. However, I feel that this is going to be a waste of time. It's completely distant from what I want to do in my life. So that's why we as writers in exile, we live between these two difficult choices. You either just live on the income you get from writing, which is going to be a very difficult living, or you leave writing and you find yourself another job in order to make money. So this is quite an important challenge, not just for us as writers, but many other artists, such as visual arts and many other arts. Europe is a very capitalist place and not merciful at all. There's no mercy in Europe. So I think this is one of the challenges. But also there is the challenge of finding Arabic books. So I only read in other languages now, so it's quite difficult to buy Arabic books. Also, by being in Europe as a refugee, it's like a prison. It is like a prison for me because I'm not allowed to go to many other countries easily. It is very difficult to attend forums. Yeah, I attend some of them, but there are 10 that I couldn't attend because I couldn't get visa. So we do face a lot of challenges from different perspectives. As I said, the living expenses, finding translators, finding publishers, and also the fact that you are away from your home country. This actually makes you not able to understand exactly what's happening back in your country. You are completely away from the everyday life that you need to write about. But also at the same time, there is no way you can understand this European society, especially at the age of 40 or 50. So you're always between two difficult choices. Of course, I can't go back because the problems that sent me to exile in the first place are still there. Sinan, thank you. There is a question from Shahinda. Hi, thank you very much for all what you said and for the reading. I have a question that might be basic or technical, but I'm talking about your book, Django, The Stakes of the Earth, that was translated into English. How come it suddenly became out of print and we can't find it in Europe or America? Well, I have it in Arabic. I borrowed it from Omar, but a lot of Sudanese people ask me about it, especially when we talk to our friends who do not speak Arabic or can read Arabic. Is it going to be issued again or not? Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. My book, Django, was translated more than 10 years ago into English. In my view, was very good. However, the main problem is with the publisher. We found a publisher straight after the book was translated, but this publisher unfortunately has the characteristics of failing the African and Arabic writers. I really don't know how this publisher still is living in America. He's quite corrupt and he doesn't respect the rights of writers. And I really hope that no one can buy this book from this publisher. And right now, the book is not for sale because I stopped it via court, by going to court. So, well, he's one of us. He's one of us. He comes from the background. He comes from the same background as myself. So, in my view, he's not an American publisher because there are very strict regulations about the relationship between the publisher and the writer, and the distribution rights and the copyrights and everything. About this person does not abide by any of these regulations. So I really don't know how he managed to work there. And I think to our fortune, he escaped to America. But don't buy the book. Don't buy the book that was written in English. I have an offer from another American publisher right now. My PA told me about that, and she's in contact with the new publisher. I don't know if it will be translated again or not, but I do not recommend that you buy this book. Thank you. Sinan, any other questions from the attendees? I wanted then to ask or finish my question regarding the body in your novels. Of course, bodies are considered a target of violence in war, but in the newer novel of The Messiah of Darfur and other novels, you use the body as a tool for fighting violence. And also, the perception of woman in war is quite complex, because she's not considered only as a victim, but rather as a fighter, especially in the novel of The Messiah of Darfur. Would you like to elaborate on that? Okay, in my view, body is some kind of politics, just like color. Well, the black man, the white man, and exactly like gender. So everything has become unexplainable. So we can't really explain body without talking about politics. And commercialization. It's very linked, closely related, even for the very people. And for the Janjaweed. The Janjaweed in this war that took place in Darfur were used as a tool by the government or in the hands of the government in order to achieve certain gains. But they were using the body as a weapon. So rape was not done for joy, but rather to break the will of others, to kill them while they are still alive. So the Sudanese people consider women and its dignity a very important thing. And to rape a woman or have a sexual intercourse with her by force was a way of killing their will, and it contributed to our defeat. For example, the armed groups that were fighting the Sudanese government at that time and that were working so hard to protect the locals also had the targets to achieve justice and all of other these things. They got broken by the fact that the body was used against them. They were broken by that. And the problem is that people stood by the side of those who raped the women, not just the women, but even the men, and who killed the prisoners who were alive, buried them alive. So to go back and forge an alliance with the killer didn't happen easily like that. It happened only because those revolutionists were broken. They were broken by the use of body and rape. This happens everywhere. It happens in many places in Sudan. The soldiers rape young girls in Khartoum. The revolutionists were raped, killed, and beaten up. And in my view, to kill someone is way better for me and for many other people in Sudan, and maybe for the entire community of Sudan, killing someone is better than raping them. To kill someone, we know that at least they are dead. But to rape a woman, this means humiliating her and humiliating her family and humiliating her entire community. So this use of the body is not a simple issue. It is a political tool. It's a weapon, a war weapon that is used against people. It's used to break the morals of people. So that's how I actually look and perceive the body. So even in the Messiah of Darfur, Abdurrahman used her body in order to bring the Janjaweed. So not for his own enjoyment, but rather in order to bring the Janjaweed and revenge. It's a very complex topic here, especially in this horrible situation in Sudan and in many other Arab countries and even in Europe. There is a lot of regulations and laws that treat with this topic as well, this topic of the body. Sinan, given that we're still talking about the Messiah of Darfur, I would like to ask you about the end of this. Abdelaziz is asking if he can speak up a little bit. Sinan. Okay, I wanted to ask you about the end, the last chapter of the Messiah of Darfur. It is very different from many other texts that you wrote. It seems like it's a bit hopeful. Well, maybe you can tell us about what you think about the end of the story. It's a beautiful end, but still a bit ambiguous. Okay, well, it's a dream, because artistically it's not really the end of the novel, because those people were inside the cave and they all had the same dream. They all dreamt the same dream at the same time. So the end is about a very big dream, which is a sample for hope. Our dream for justice, our dream for freedom, our dream for the war to end, our dream back to our life before the war, our dream to overcome all the suffering that we've been through. So it was all about hope, hope in the future, a future that holds more goodness, more dignity. But I know that it is not that easy. We had a really big hope in the young people's revolution, which is still happening right now, and I hope that it happened. They were calling it the parade, which is a lovely word, and we're still waiting for this parade. If we keep dreaming, I'm sure that we will eventually achieve it, make it true. Sinan. Yes, but there's beautiful usage of the religious and Christian symbols as well, but also the this idea of the prophet who will come and save people from all their misery. I think this is a very important idea, especially in Sudan. Yes, this idea has very deep roots in Sudan, even in the Marawi system. in Darfur, there are tens of prophets, and until now, that some people call themselves prophets who are still alive right now in Sudan. And after the Messiah of Darfur, a person called himself Isa, the Messiah, appeared, and he considered himself as the Messiah of Darfur, and he's still fighting the government somewhere. So this idea of prophecy is closely related to the economic, social, and political situation and the general feeling of failure in life, in having a normal life, in just having a normal, regular life. So when all doors are closed in the face of the simple people, and those people don't find any way out, things get mixed up for them. So they think always of a prophet or a messenger or someone who's going to come and save the world from all its suffering. And then that person himself or herself become a problem and makes the situation more complex. But prophets in Sudan are many. Maybe we can say that they are in the hundreds. Every now and then we have a new prophet. Sinan, in Iraq, especially in the last few years, because of the economic and social situation that's awful, in the last 3 years, many new prophets appeared, especially in the south part of Iraq, but they all got arrested. Okay, given that you spoke about this topic, can I ask you to talk about two other topics, really, which is the impact of your writings in Sudan? So the stakes of the earth, for example, has become a motto in one of the revolutions, one of the demonstrations that happened. The marginalized groups of people became so prominent in the literally texts. So that's why I would like to ask, from your own experience, from your own work in Sudan, did you learn more about these marginalized groups? Did it give you depth in your understanding of their life? Yeah, well, when I'm asked about this, well, I usually say I am one of those groups. I am one of the people of the marginalized group.
حتى هذه الشرائح احيانا تعتبر احسن حالا من الشريحه التي انتمي اليها انا شخصيا.
Well, maybe some of these groups were better off than my own community. So my understanding, my knowledge about these groups is part of my life, is part of my childhood. I didn't live in any towns or cities. I didn't live in Khartoum or Omdurman yeah, okay, I was born in Kassala, but I always lived in the countryside with such groups. So my knowledge about these groups does not come from learning or meeting them. It's coming from my living with them. I am one of them. And yes, this helped me massively when I wrote about these groups. I know their problems. I know their concerns. And I also know their crimes because they also have their own bad sides. So they're not always innocent. So when I wrote Django, for example, I had to go and travel to the farms. I went to Khashm al-Gurba, but I had to go in the farms, and I had to be dressed in the same way that the Jango get dressed, and I had to be with them in their houses, and I also had to attend their drinking gatherings. And this is one of the things that they love so much. I had to stay with them for a period. And they start a journey from the borders of Sudan with Ethiopia to Ethiopia. Every single day they make this journey after work. They cross the small river, Nahr Basalam or Sadid, the river of Basalam or Sadid, and they go to Ethiopia. And then they come back, which is a beautiful journey and quite a strange journey as well. It is strange because when you get to the border, the border is the river. It's a seasonal river, and you can cross it just on foot. And the locals on the other side in Ethiopia, who are maybe 20 meters away from Sudan, their life is completely different. They get dressed in a completely different way. They swim in the river in a completely different way, which is so beautiful. And they have bars and places where people can go and drink alcohol legally with no problem whatsoever. While on the other side, the Sudanese side, the police is everywhere. Women cannot swim in the river unless they are fully dressed. Men also are restricted, and restrictions are everywhere. Censorship is everywhere. You can see this difference in the space of only 20 meters. 20 meters only. So it was a new experience. I was born in this area and I lived area, and the fact that I was very close to these people who are completely different in their culture, and and even the land itself is completely different. It becomes more muddy once you cross the river. So this did affect my writings. It affected my topics and it affected my knowledge about this world. Isa Al-Halu, who's our teacher, he says that a writer cannot write well without knowing what you write about very well. Sinan, thank you. I think if there are no other questions, we would like to ask Mr. Abdelaziz Baraka Sakin about this for this lovely conversation, and I would like to encourage anyone who didn't read his novels, please go ahead and do that because they are beautiful novels. And thank you very much for your presence. Thank you for very much for your participation. Things will be better and will be able to publish more novels. But by the way, the situation of translated novels in Europe is much better than in America. In America, it's only 3%. Abdelaziz, yes, in Europe it's 2%. So also there is some kind of a relation between the our countries and the colonizing countries. We have some kind of connection with other ethnicities and other cultures. But America, I think it's a bit different. Maybe I think that's how I look at it. But I hope that things will be better. Sinan saying, well, life would be very difficult without hope. But thank you very much. Thank you very much for the translation. Thank you for Mushtaba. Thank you, Azarine. And thank you for all our attendees. Thank you. Abdelaziz, yes, I also would like to thank you all. Thank you for Mushtaba and Azarine and everybody else and all who participated in this lovely forum. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Sinan, all right, thank you. See you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sinan John and Abdelaziz and Asma. That was just incredible. And for those of you who are still here, please check out our website so that you can follow our events. And we have another one coming up on December 2nd. And we will have a recording of this event. And with your permission, Abdelaziz, we will circulate that for